Text: 1 Peter 3 1-7. The passage before us unfolds within a completed redemptive horizon, where the apostolic voice speaks into a world standing at the edge of covenantal transition. The words are addressed to a scattered people, those who once lived under the shadow of the old order, yet were being gathered into the light of a fulfilled reality. In this setting, the exhortations concerning husbands and wives are not merely domestic instructions, but reflections of a greater unveiling, the manifestation of a new creation identity already secured. Likewise, wives, be subject to your own husbands. The term likewise connects this instruction to what precedes, namely, the pattern of Christ, who suffered once in the flesh but now stands vindicated beyond it. The submission described here is not rooted in deficiency or hierarchy of worth, but in the echo of that completed suffering which has already brought all things into subjection under him. It is a participation in a reality where striving has ceased, because reconciliation has been accomplished. The mention of unbelieving husbands situates the audience within a transitional age, one in which not all had yet come as what had already been secured. The conduct of the wife, described as chaste and respectful, is not a means of earning or persuading in a moralistic sense, but a visible expression of an inward rest. It is the quiet testimony of a life no longer driven by the anxiety of unfinished redemption. Do not let your adorning be external. Here, Peter contrasts two realms, the visible and the hidden. The external, braiding of hair, wearing of gold, belongs to the fading structures of the old age, where identity was often established through outward distinction. But the hidden person of the heart speaks of something altogether different, a reality not subject to decay, because it is grounded in what has already been perfected. The imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit is not an ethical achievement to be attained, but a description of what naturally flows from a heart that has ceased from striving. It is imperishable precisely because it is rooted in what cannot be undone, the finished work that has brought all things into their intended rest. Peter then reaches back to the holy women who hoped in God. Their hope was forward-looking, anticipating what had not yet been revealed in fullness. Yet, for the original audience, that hope had reached its consummation. What was once anticipated had now been realized. Thus, the reference to Sarah obeying Abraham serves not as a call to imitation in a legal sense, but as a reminder that what they longed for has now been brought to completion. You are her children, if you do good and do not fear anything that is frightening. The absence of fear is key. Fear belongs to a realm of uncertainty, where outcomes remain unresolved. But in the light of a finished redemption, fear loses its footing. What remains is a settled confidence, not in human effort, but in what has already been established. Likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way. Again, the word likewise ties the instruction back to the same completed pattern. The husband's role is described in terms of knowledge, an awareness shaped by the revelation of what has been accomplished. To honor the wife as the weaker vessel is not to diminish her, but to recognize the shared participation in grace that levels all distinctions of status. They are heirs with you of the grace of life. This is the central note. Not future heirs, but present ones. The grace of life is not a promise awaiting fulfillment. It is a possession already granted. Both husband and wife stand on equal ground within this reality, co-heirs of something that cannot be increased or diminished, so that your prayers may not be hindered. Prayer, in this context, is not a striving toward God as though distance remains, but the expression of communion within an already established union. To live in disharmony is to obscure the clarity of that communion, not because access is lost, but because awareness is clouded. Thus, the passage unfolds not as a set of conditions to be met, but as a description of life within a completed order. The relationships it addresses are framed by a reality in which reconciliation is no longer pending, identity is no longer uncertain, and grace is no longer a distant promise. Everything spoken here flows from what has already been accomplished, and therefore carries the tone not of demand, but of revelation.